Attention, cadets. I am your commanding officer, Derek Juggernaut, and this is your squad sergeant, Rick Spaceman. Yes, and bit of a flashback. It's actually quite a bit of nostalgia for me seeing this screen and these ridiculous names, which I did not pick, I'd like to point out. That was not my choice.
Welcome to Custard's Last Stand.
Don't go there. But yes, Halo 3. A pretty great classic.
This is true.
And one of the most popular of the series, which is partially why we're doing it. The main reason why we're doing it is somewhat silly, because I totally forgot how this game started. Of all the Halo games, I remember the intros of all of them, and I had forgotten this one, and then the moment the cutscene started, I was like, oh, I remember. So it ended up being kind of a useless thing. Why is Johnson getting in my way? But, whoa, holy crap. I can jump like a frickin' West African.
He wants to start a family company.
Oh dear, I don't know what you mean by that. With an alien of all things?
Johnson & Johnson, what are you...
Wow.
You
got me on the starting the family thing, and I was like, excuse me?
You want to run that by me again? Heck! He even agrees.
But anyways.
Say that again.
Yes, one of the more popular ones in the series, although it is not my... Oop! I'm going to have to get used to the controls again. It's not my favorite in the series. That's how you do this quickscope. I will always be partial to Halo 2. I won't strictly argue that it's genuinely the best, although I think it's great, but it's my favorite, I think. Oop. Just because, I don't know why, to be honest. What are your... You have an opinion?
On which one is better?
Did you toss a grenade at me?
I did not.
Well, somebody
do any
did.
such thing.
Well, we're off to a great start. That was the other reason we wanted... I figured, on the broader level, I mean, the reason we chose Halo 3 rather than any other Halo was somewhat arbitrary, but I did choose Halo because I thought perhaps a good chance for us to get some co-op action, because after both of us mutually sucked a bit at the City of Brass, I figured let's preempt the inevitable comments about how much we suck and the debates on who sucks less by just having a bit of a side-by-side, or in this case, top and bottom comparison. And,
I'm on top always. Understand that right now?
Wow, you had to go there, didn't you?
Hey! You're the one that set that one up.
I wasn't setting that up for you. I was just trying to make pleasant conversation, and you had to make it creepy. But yes, anyways, now we'll let the people decide who they think sucks less. And admittedly, I'm not going to do as well as I thought because the controls have me totally screwed up.
Why is that?
The Halo series was notorious for pretty much every game having a different control mapping, which bothered me.
No, that is true. Well, that's why I
Plus, I have not played these, and I've been in. Oh, you know what's funny? I can't even. What's the name of the most? I haven't even played any shooters really lately, but the most recent one I'm thinking of is. It would probably be something like Deus Ex or something even.
Oh.
Where there's a lot more
bit off too much
cover and stuff. Oh, you did.
What do you guys think? This is why in these particular games specifically, I always choose green thumb. But where are my green thumbs at? Because
you're gonna get one person who's gonna give you a green thumbs up.
Wow.
I'm not doing well at all. I'm ashamed.
You know why? It's because you're not a green thumb. Get out. The reason is because, and the reason I say that is not because. Oh, okay.
I'm also, in all fairness, I also I do not like the Covenant weapons most of the time.
That, yeah.
Like.
I find that the reason I like the whole green thumb mentality is because of the fact that it's been consistent throughout all the games, whereas the default controls, as you've already said, have not.
But to the conversation I forgot the conversation that I was attempting to start. What's your personal preference of the series?
See, I love 4, but I love the
Really?
the
You're
story
gonna get comments
of 4.
about that.
I know. And
Are you
I
dropping?
don't.
Is this your weapon you're dropping?
Yeah.
Oh no! I forgot. This was the game in which you could forcibly bully your teammates into giving you their weapons. Hey, take my alien crap. You probably don't know how to use. I'm pushing it. Thank you.
Wait, whoa. You're going to give up the...
The carbine? Yes. I will give up just about any Covenant weapon, other than, like, the Needler.
I actually didn't mind the carbine. The Needler sucks!
No, the Needler does not suck. The Needler's one of the most powerful. Because it does double damage because they explode once they're in you.
How do I get that goodness in me? The reason I like 4 is...
See, well, you know what it is? It's I'm in the Fallout mode where I'm trying to do iron sights and I end up just hucking grenades. Hey, you're gonna pick it up? You do you, man. What were you saying though? See, there you go. Now I get. There we go.
And this is the reason right here. Boom. Dropped him.
Well, okay, so you like the snipering aspect? Because there's, you know what, the humans have a rifle for that too. They call it the sniper rifle.
Well, yeah, but I don't have one of those. Unless one of our teammates does, and in that case, where are they? Because I'm going to bully them.
Oh, I forgot we set this to heroic as well. There you go. There's our excuse as to why we...
No, that's your excuse. I'm doing just fine. Oh, as I die.
Yeah, I was about to say, don't go acting like...
No, the reason I think it's 4 is partially because that's really when I started getting into the story side of Halo.
Well, so it would be the same... On a meta level, it's the same reason as me. It's just nostalgia. It was the first one,
right?
For you,
kind of.
Because that's basically why I like 2 the most. Is just because that was the first Halo I played.
But I do think at the same time, the reason is because as much as I know people say, oh, it's just because the graphics were better.
They were.
Yes.
That even I will concede.
I mean, they were, but that's not even the reason or my motivation for it. Get out of here. Okay.
See.
It's not my motivation for why. I liked it.
Okay.
I actually really enjoyed it.
I don't remember them being able to do that.
This is partially a little bit of my romanticism coming out in me, as far as like just.
You're gonna romanticize Halo. That's interesting.
Well, romantic in the emotional kind of classical sense. Not
well,
like
that's 4 did have a sort of more of that than most of the others.
That's what I'm saying. It had a little bit more emotional content than I feel like some of the others did, which I appreciated.
Well, because. Spoiler alert to where we're going to go in this conversation. It had an impactful ending.
Is true.
And then time passed, and then it didn't.
Okay.
Well, we're going to stick each other.
Okay.
Me and a grunt had mutually assured destruction. Oh. Wow. I'm blaming this on the heroic difficulty and time.
Well, time... As much as it heals all wounds, it also creates new ones in games.
Well,
lapses in memory.
Well, time will kill you, won't you? Don't you know? Too much time and you're dead. So you're going to go with 4 then. That's a bit of an interesting. Yeah, I didn't predict that. I'm not sure that I knew.
Did you have a theory on what I would have chosen?
I thought you would have picked either 2 or 3 because we played those together a lot. Because 3 was the one we played probably the most when we did, because that was one of our earliest
just something about,
sort of gaming sessions together was 3.
That is true.
Because that was the newest one I had at the time.
Which is, I mean, it's worth saying. I just there was something about 4 that just stuck out to me, and again, I really think that it was the romantic kind of emotionalism.
Well, you want to be cautious when you say romantic, because I don't think that.
I'm not talking about the meta-narrative of Cortana.
Yeah, they did, because they did try to make that a pseudo-romance, and that, I'll admit, didn't work. What worked for me with that
I was talking about Master Chief's actual emotional state.
Yeah, and they did play that up where it was like, we're not even going to get past this first mission in this hour. I was thinking we might, see at least something of the game in this amount of time. But they did try to do that. Because what made it effective to me was they played up the whole juxtaposition of basically she's an AI who's going insane, which you'd think of was impossible, and he's an actual person who behaves more like a robot than she does, and they play that up in that game, and it's that.
Well,
perhaps you might call it a little ham-fisted, and maybe.
Maybe, but I felt like it was well done. I mean,
yeah. Oop, big cluster. There we go.
It was the only reason I would classify it as ham-fisted is it by comparison of the other ones. Yes.
Well, the other ones never tried to do anything quite so
right.
emotionally significant. You gotta stay alive. They respawn me with my crap weapons.
So in that regard, I would say I agree. Oh, you strappy son of a gun.
Well, we might as well get into that because it's an uncommon opinion to pick 4 as the favorite. It has a tendency to be treated like the runt of the litter, which to a degree it is. It was made by a different studio, and some people call it a cash grab. I'm not sure I would go that far.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Because in all fairness, the ending of Halo 3 is kind of unsatisfying, and I suppose maybe that was the point. Because I mean, for those who aren't, if you're not as devoted a fan as we at least used to be, I can't speak to our current skill notwithstanding. I used to be big into the story of these, and so 3 ends with you destroy the Ark, which controls all the Halo rings, and Chief is on a ship as it's doing their warp equivalent, because they have some kind of special warp technology in this. I forget the name of. But because that like collapses or something goes wrong, the ship gets broken in half and he gets stuck in the aft half of it. So he's essentially lost in space, and they presume him dead. They say that he's missing in action, and that's kind of the whole final cutscene. Is they have the monument to all of the fallen, warriors of the Human Covenant War, and he's like on the bottom of the list.
Well, yeah. But that's why I felt like Halo 4 at the beginning was such a...
Well, yeah, because it feels like it's like, I suppose they were maybe trying to go with like a war narrative where it's like, oh, he's lost and it's a tragedy, but it's like, it's kind of unsatisfying. So I liked that 4 gave it an ending where he's found. I thought that the stuff they did with him and Cortana was not bad.
For sure
the romantic aspect, I think, was a little... pushing it.
Yeah, so
the interpersonal sort of
that part again. I say
their relationship as purely as friends, I guess you could call it, in the sense that it's weird when it's an artificial intelligence. But then again,
well, I was about to say you made that comment earlier, and if I could postulate that there is that because they were trying to balance the more human kind of characteristics of the AI with the, again, as you said, the more robotic.
You came right at me.
More robotic interactions
of
Master Chief. It brought humanity to both of them, I would argue, which is it's saying something because you're bringing humanity to an AI.
Well, and anyway, it's more complex than we could probably solve, and I don't think we're going to be resolving the rift in the community.
Him and that...
Well, brutes are... Oh, I'm already out of ammo. I just picked this gun up. And now I've got to keep you alive. There you go. I don't think we're going to succeed at quelling people's troubles with the series as a whole. But I personally would say I agree with some people that 4 is probably the weakest of all of them, personally, on a technical level as a game. Obviously, the graphics and stuff like that are significantly better. I actually think the sound design in 4 is uniquely better because that's the one area the series has sort of struggled. Especially 2, as much as I love 2, the sound design in 2 is really kind of sad. Where, like, the standard machine gun sounds like you're flipping through a flip book. It's like, really ridiculous.
Whereas, hey, I just got attacked by a Rolodex.
Whereas 4, we had an actual sound system in our game room.
Yeah,
when I got 4.
That was great.
And it was like, I had that thing plugged up, and it was like freaking Saving Private Ryan.
It was pretty
great. It was great. So admittedly, that's a somewhat subjective thing. But like, I think it's technically, for all its technical superiorities, I don't know that it works the best as a game because the whole didact thing, the villain, was also a little bit of a stretch. You gotta at least tell me when you die so I can try to be more... To try to not die.
Sitting over here...
Well, I'm not...
On a camera angle...
I'm not.
teabagging
I've got my
myself.
own. I've got my own troubles. I can't be. Oh, I just realized I'm blowing up the hostage.
Okay.
I didn't realize he was holding a hostage when I stuck him with a grenade. Was I supposed to save that guy, or? Because I didn't. I think it's the weaker story-wise, but I don't think it deserves the crap it gets, because it does get a fair bit.
Right.
And I still like it. I think it ended well and should have been left at that. And and if anything, in fact, I saw there's a channel. It was one of those weird YouTube things that happened where I started seeing the community discussions of a channel I did not follow. And presumably it was like I had watched some compilation thing they did and didn't realize it. And then they just started showing me their stuff. But it just happened to be like a poll of people's favorite Halo games. And it was, the actual main plots. It wasn't including things like ODST and the Halo Wars and that nonsense. And I was somewhat disappointed and surprised because Halo Reach was like massively popular, and I don't think that's
I thought that was one of the worst ones.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh.
I didn't love it as a game because I'm not a fan of. He was just shooting you in the butt. He wanted you to know. But I don't love it, but partially just because I don't love that it doesn't include Chief, which I suppose is, I don't know, call it a weird. I don't know. I mean,
it's a bit of a purist perspective.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, not that Chief's necessarily that much more dynamic a character than the others in the team, but I don't know. I just didn't find them that compelling.
Now I'm giving.
Well, good. You should have said that sooner.
No, I said it right when I made it.
I didn't find the characters that gripping because they're sort of a little bit. There's the sassy woman. There's the big burly man. There's the Hispanic guy who
token.
Yeah, there's the Hispanic guy who doesn't take people's crap. I mean, it's like it felt a little cliched. And then it's just the story. I'm just
right
like
into that one.
And we died at the same time. We're really not going to get past this level, and I'm going to be embarrassed. I was hoping that this could be redemptive, at least that we might show, perhaps, that we don't wholly suck. But after this, we're just adding fuel to last week's fire. I stuck him in the groin. There you go. That guy's going to kamikaze at no one. He's going to go. Well, dude, you got. Oh, okay. I said at no one, but he walked literally the 8 miles it took to get to you, and you didn't notice.
Well, because I was too busy getting other things
now I
done.
got to keep you alive, but at least I think everyone's dead. Oh, hey, we were going to progress slightly. Oh, that's no. I don't
I'd be curious what your guys' favorite Halo weapon was, because I'm surprised that Needler is actually.
Oh, I wouldn't say favorite. Well, it's the best. It's my favorite of the Covenant weapons. Although I do like these brute pistols. I'm not sure what you call them.
I don't know. I love the carbines, and I don't know why.
I don't like alien guns and almost anything alien guns appear in because
alien hunting. Okay, hi.
Because they just always they try to get away from the human type guns. They try to make them distinct, but there's something visceral and concussive about mechanical firearms.
Yeah,
it's
I hear you.
You like it feels like it feels right. And,
that feels right.
And alien weapons kind of never have that same kick. But yeah, so I would. Now that I think about it, I actually probably would rank Reach lower than 4. Which I mean, now not only are we going to be criticized for our horrendous skill, but we're going to be just ripped new ones for our heretical beliefs apparently. But yeah, I never loved it as the game, and I never loved it. I didn't like the characters as much, and I'm not sure why. Now this, I will admit, I remember this part of this game, and it gets annoying because it happens frequently and often at the very worst time. So yeah, 2 for me, purely I'll admit because of nostalgia. I love it. I love the missions. It's the one I've played through probably like 10 times easily. And yeah,
for me, story is everything, and I can't get over when there's not a. I think that's what I had such a problem with Reach, is that it was a Reach. It was like, that there was not enough compelling story to really keep me playing, which is, I mean, that's To
Well,
me, that's
the ultimate story I have about it is I first played it with my cousin
oh well.
because he had it before I did, and I don't remember who the first person in the team to die because spoiler alert, if you don't know anything about Reach, nobody makes it out. That's the whole plot of Reach. And if you know anything about, even if you haven't played it, if you know anything about the Halo lore, you'll know that Reach was that kind of event. So, oop, I just killed a friend. I forget who the first in the team to die is. I think it might be the Russian chick with the robot arm. Even if she's not, I remember we were playing and neither of us liked her very much because she's very much the quintessential, like, sassy woman character and feels very cliche. And that's not a misogynistic thing before people jump on me. It's not that. I swear. It's just because she's really annoying and kind of spiteful and bitter. And it's like, it was dumb. And I remember there was the scene in which you're escaping some city and she ends up getting, like, sniped in a cutscene. And literally when it happened, both of us were like, "Hey, she's gone!"
Wait a minute, the sun is coming up. She's gone.
Yeah, it was literally that, like, so it's like that's just a testament to it's like clearly the characters did not connect for me. And maybe it did for others, but I don't understand it in that case. Oh, you're doing some kind of weird gyrations with the ground. Oop. So yeah, I don't quite get Reach's popularity, to be honest. I don't get it, but
I think it has to be some sort of part of the online community thing. Like
well,
the
but
whole,
there's
like,
been that for all the games have had
yeah,
pretty
but I mean,
well developed
Reach,
online.
But see, when people like say, "Oh, the
Oh,
online was
golly.
way better in Reach" or something like that, then you go, "Okay, well,
Well,
then now you're not even
well,
actually
do
playing."
people
the
say
game
that?
for
Because
the
I
main
honestly
campaign.
don't know. I have never hardly connected it. My experience with the multiplayer in the Halo games is me and a couple
Zilch.
friends getting together
Yeah, I
and
was about to
playing
say.
local.
Yeah.
Like I've never done any of the online connection stuff because I don't care.
Well, this was around the time of kind of the death of LAN party. I mean, like,
Yeah, I mean the 360 was notably the last console you could even have a lot of local game nights. Because nowadays there are a lot of games, even games that are meant for multiplayer, don't even do like local, like get around to some guy's house
Right.
and play them all together. It's like it's all online, and that's part of the fun of a game, especially this kind of game. Is being able to teabag someone and look at their face and be like, "Ha ha, I got you," or smack someone across the room when they're talking crap. Like that's the
or
fun.
apparently gives them an anal contusion with the weapon.
Excuse me.
What the other grunt was doing to me.
Oh. But it's like that's what's fun about this, and you don't get that in a lot of modern console games because they're all online, and it's not my bag. I'm an old school fuddy-duddy. What's to say? Bye. So, anyways, you say 4, I say 2. He says how high. And yeah, that's.
So let him. Oh, okay.
We touched on our that we might eventually get to this, and we might as well. 5 shouldn't have happened.
I don't believe 5 ever existed.
Well, yeah, I that's a good way to think. I can't. I have bad news for you, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
Was that the bad news?
I have bad news on a immediate and long-term sense. But 5 just was. And I'll admit, again, people are gonna say we're speaking from ignorance. I've never played 5. I have only just seen the synopses and reviews of it. Because to me, when I learned that they were making 5, it was very much that experience of going, but why? Because it ended. It's like the whole Toy Story 4 thing, which I suppose we could get into, where it's like,
okay.
well, as an example, as a popular example of, because most people would agree, Toy Story 3 was like a textbook on how to end a long-standing series brilliantly.
A cut above the rest.
Yeah, like that's a well-known example, and of course, and yet they made another one when people are going, but it ended really well, so why does it need another one? And I felt the exact same way about 5. I'm going, I thought 4 ended great, and then we're just gonna go, it doesn't. And apparently, like, Cortana's still alive somehow,
What?
which completely undoes the ending of 4. So it's not just that it actually actively rewrites the basic plot, and then it's like Chief goes off to find her, I guess, because he can't get over not having her or something ridiculous.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm just like, I don't get it, because it just feels like a money grab is all I'm gonna say, and I believe that it was. And now they're making a sixth one, which I don't even have a clue what the plot of that's
What
going
is
to
it
be.
about 6? Can I just ask that question? Is it because Star Wars did it first? Is everybody obsessed with
Everyone's
that?
shooting for 6. Well, Pirates is shooting for 6.
Well, that's again to my point. I don't understand what the magical sextuplet is.
Well, I think it's the I don't know, double trilogy. I don't know.
Yeah, but if you can't pull it off, then don't.
You can't pull it off in 3.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm getting out of there, wherever that was. Area definitely is not safe.
That was like sniped in the face.
Well, and that was another topic I had saved, which is the epidemic known as by some as sequelitis.
Well,
is the term I've heard coined for it, and it's
meaning other like fans want more, or
no.
wow, okay.
I think
it got right up there.
I think perhaps it could go both ways, because I do know that there's definitely there's snipers across the river. Careful though. So there you go. He's gonna get
Careful, Ryan. Most of the equipment in this room does not react well to bullets. Oh, okay.
I have no clue what that was meant to be, other than it sounded like a vaguely attempt at Sean Connery.
It's Hunt for Red October, you weirdo. That's exactly what it is.
What was the line though?
I said, "Careful, Ryan. Most of the equipment in this room does not react well to bullets."
Well, it has. I have not seen Red October for I don't even know how long. I do think it goes. There's both ways. There's definitely fans who can't move on and are like, "Oh, I need the next one of these," and it's just that's
hence the Assassin's Creed series. And I will admit, I have been one of those fans. Okay.
Yeah, but then there's also, even in that context, there's the opposite, which is studios going, "Hey, we've got a thing here, so let's just milk it.
Drive it into
let's
the
just
ground.
get all the money out of it we can." Because we can, and that's definitely where Ubisoft's at with Assassin's Creed. Oh, stay alive.
Where's?
Well, someone shot me from the distance, so just he's up here. He's up here.
Oh, okay.
I'll avenge you. Well, how long does it take for them to die? Okay, so it's like it's happening and it's spreading. It's becoming
Increasingly a problem.
Yeah, it's spreading quite alarmingly. In fact,
because
it used to be. Because here's the thing. We brought it up with Toy Story. It's like Disney used to be really quite good at writing stories is the basics of it, because they knew how to end things, they knew how to continue when it was necessary. They used to be quite the masters of good storytelling, and now they've really just become, we're going to crank out sequels because we can and because they'll make money. And I mean, Let's tread carefully on the topic of the live action stuff, because we can go on. We could do the whole episode just ranting about that.
Well, that's true.
Where it's just like it becomes less. Let's tell a creatively fulfilling story, and let's just do the thing that makes us money.
Well, and I mean, again, you get back to people that say you can't leave well enough alone because they. I don't understand why people can't say it was great and now it's done.
Well, like that, yeah, like BioShock, for example.
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen, for the other end, I've seen.
That is
some tactical donk.
Some squats right there. Some tactical donk.
But now, that's completely thrown me off my game. I'm questioning everything now.
My donk has that tendency to do that to people.
I was talking about Disney, and how. Because it's like, and now I've lost it. I don't even have the will to talk about it. It's just, but we're talking about BioShock, where it's like, I've seen people going, I can't, when's the next BioShock game? We need BioShock. And I'm like,
you don't.
No, you don't. Because it's like they were great games, and guess what happened when they thought, hey, let's pump these out for money? We got BioShock 2, which is pretty much universally considered to be the worst of them. And I mean, it's not necessarily a bad game in terms of it's perfectly functional. It's just that the story is lacking because they pumped it out as a sequel they needed, and it had no actual. And the story didn't need to be told, and that's where I'd go. I'm glad that there's 2 BioShock games because I'm discounting the second one that are great, brilliant, will stand the test of time type games, and I'm not sure that the Assassin's Creed will, other than the first, other than a few of them like 1, 2, 4. And that's kind of it. It's like when you pump them out like that, you can't spend as much attention on each one.
It's not just that. It's also worth saying that when you have so much quantity of something, it can't be appreciated for what it is. Like if you just pump a ton out, people start getting comfortable with the fact that it's there, and then they go, it's no longer special.
Well, and it's like the fact that to jump track slightly, a friend of mine once recommended the One Piece anime, and I was like, oh well, okay, maybe I'll check it out. I looked it up. The dub alone, 1,400 episodes.
Wow.
The sub, over 3,000 now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not gonna jump into this because I'll never. It's like I couldn't in my lifetime finish this.
Right. Exactly.
And that's where I go. It's like it becomes like we talked about another thing. It's like if I can't finish it and get some kind of closure. Like, if I don't get to the end, which is the whole point of a story. Not that it's like, the story is just about getting to the end, but a story that doesn't end, there's no satisfaction, there's no conclusion. So, and it's like, I'm not going to watch that because there's no way I can. And I like things, Full Metal Alchemist had like 60 episodes, which is comparatively compared to One Piece, it's like, that's nothing, and yet it's far greater, and I still have far fonder memories of it, even for the short time that it took to watch it. Wow, I'm just dying all the time because that level of you take all of the effort that goes into 3,000 episodes, and you cut all the chaff, and you focus down to what is the basic necessities of the story,
right? And
you get really refined. Nothing is lost, nothing is wasted.
Well, right, and I think like if you're, I understand if it's a moving target.
I feel like we're getting a little preachy on this, actually.
Well, I mean, it's one thing if it's a moving target and you're still saying, we're trying to figure out when we want to end this. We didn't realize it was going to be this popular. And you're being able. Here's the thing: if you're being able to sustain the good, like the quality content, I'm just standing because I'm talking. Then I say then you're okay to continue. Like case in point, you're
going where I think you're gonna go. Well, you have to go there for me to know.
I was gonna.
I strapped him right in the undercarriage. I don't know if the aliens have undercarriage.
I was gonna say Supernatural. When you
haven't seen Supernatural.
No, my point is if you get.
I could talk about Supernatural.
Yeah, well, you could in a more informed manner, but I'm just saying, I guarantee you, they didn't start saying we're going to have an umpteen amount of seasons.
Well, no, as a matter of fact, it's rather well known that the end of season 5, which is when the writer's strike happened, in I think like 2008, when numerous TV series were very much at risk of being canceled. They basically the entire season was written with the expectation that it was going to be the last one.
Right.
And it's like, because they didn't really, and it had gotten big by then, but it's like they still weren't, they're up to like, I think they're finally finishing now at something like 15.
Well, but it's
like they didn't probably know that was going to happen.
Yeah, but the difference is it was organic, and that's the thing. If you can't make it organic and you are manufacturing something that's not there, you can tell because it's the Nintendo thing. It's the hyping it up. And like when they put out the classics, and they were like, "It's a big deal. We're gonna make this a big thing," and then they only released a certain amount because they want that kind of demand.
Although they're now scraping the bottom of that barrel though. Now that it's,
I agree,
because they're running out of other ideas.
That's my point.
I think the ultimate example I thought you were going to go with was Arrow, of course, because we've never actually found an avenue to talk about that because I think both of us have some deep-seated trauma because of it. Because that's a series.
We don't want to talk about Bible.
Oh no, that's a reference. Everyone's going to be like, "What?" And then some people are going to be like, "I know exactly who they're talking about." Because Arrow, and I'll admit you were more into it than I was at the first, because it's definitely campy. It's not like a super serious critique.
Help me understand.
In
what
the
you mean
sense
by
of,
that.
well, camp's a hard word to describe because I don't actually know. It's basically like knowingly tongue-in-cheek, where it's like something that kind of knows that it's silly, but it doesn't take itself too seriously.
That's interesting. I've never heard that terminology.
I'm not actually sure where it comes from, but I've heard it used. It's like it's oftentimes used to describe like some of the James Bond movies or like 80s action movies. It's like they don't take themselves that seriously. They're a little bit knowingly silly. And it had that, it occasionally had that, but it was fun and interesting for the most part. And they actually had some pretty powerful episodes, even where it was like they really actually managed to have some good emotional moments and storylines.
Right.
And then they kept pushing it, and you kept wondering. And then it's like every season there's a new villain.
Oh, clearly this
and then
has
they beat
to be the end.
Yeah, it's like they beat
the villains got very obviously worse. At the
It's like
end.
where you're going. It's just they
This
just
isn't
kept
even
coming up with
compelling
villains
anymore. It was like, I'm here to take over the universe. It's like this.
Well, literally, it's like the season finale of every episode was they beat some. Wow, that guy was Johnny on the spot. They beat the long-standing villain of that series, and then reveal that he was just a pawn of someone else. And then the next series,
his villain.
yeah, and then the next series is them, and then they do it again, and then you get to seasons 7 and 8, which were like now we're doing some bizarre future plot that none of us are prepared to follow.
By the way,
with characters none of one really likes.
I was about to say. By the way, any nerds that are watching this would know what I'm talking about. They blended and kind of basically.
What are you firing at?
There was a guy up there. They blended and really kind of Frankensteined so many various comics together.
Oh boy!
To make that happen, like.
Well, in all fairness, they were doing that from the beginning.
Not really. They were using Arrow the way. I mean, that like the Green Arrow comics, the way that they really. I mean, yes, there were various threads.
Because they were combining.
But my point is, they're combining
characters.
But what I'm saying is, at the end, they were literally combining various DC comics together, and I'm going, this isn't even related. Yeah. So what are you talking about here?
It's just it got really terrible.
I sacrificed myself for you. And you did nothing with it.
Oh, you got a rebel without a cause up there. We had some kind of weird glitchery. But yeah, like that's a perfect example of something that didn't know when to quit. And even wasn't it you? Because you had mentioned there were some articles about Stephen Amell basically saying, "Hey, we should stop while we're ahead."
Oh yeah, he actually like outside of the fact that I think he was under contract, he said, "I'm not doing this."
Well, yeah,
I'm sure they would have continued.
Well, yeah, and it's like it's actually quite admirable to find an actor who's willing to say, "Hey, I'd rather be out of a job than let this thing go to pot," and that's a pretty impressive degree of self-control and respect for the actual craft.
He took himself very I think that is also lost where actors now I think are very one-dimensional, and that's a pretty heavy critique to bring. But I just think,
when you consider back in the day that like you couldn't be in Hollywood unless you knew how to act and dance or sing or do some kind of like when you go to Singing in the Rain, it's like these guys are they sing and they dance and they act and they can do literally all of these varieties of things because it was sort of in the days of Hollywood when there wasn't everything was permitted in a way. It was like we're just gonna experiment with all sorts of stuff, so you had to be able to perform a variety of different arts, as it were, in the classical sense, theatrical arts. And there's a lot less of that where you go there's people just go, yeah, I play these types of characters. And sometimes that's not their fault, but sometimes it is. Or they just go, yeah, I'm content to play this kind of person.
Right.
And,
you see the people that just kind of typecast themselves into one role and they're completely content with that. And it's like, the whole... that's maybe too unpopular an opinion.
Well, there you go. Let's get some controversy going. That's best publicity, don't you know?
Well, I was going to say, Liam Neeson, love him to death.
I'm not.
The Taken movies need to stop.
Are they still going? I thought there was only the 3.
No, there was enough of them that was like, okay, I understand. He's hardcore and he is going to go save the day, but there's only so many times you can do the same plot.
He's come back from the dead. Holy crap.
I don't know. And again, I love the guy, and I honestly think he's a great actor.
I don't know. I wasn't aware that there were a whole bunch of Taken sequels. I thought there was only 3 or something.
It's enough that.
Okay, I was out of. What was it? Maybe we got rain. I wonder if that's audible. It's kind of loud. I know that I could rant on this forever, and the whole. I mean,
we should probably move on.
Yeah, we should because we've already.
It's a little soapboxy.
Yeah, we've already gotten. Yeah, we're well and truly soapboxed, but just let things be well enough, and then what's good when you do that is you get new stuff, and that's fun, because if everyone's just remaking stuff that already exists or continuing series that already exist, then you never get any new stuff.
Oh, and this is a good life lesson. If you do the same thing for your wives or your girlfriends over and over again, sooner or later it becomes old hat.
Well,
Don't do it.
There you go. That was unexpected marriage counseling with your squad sergeant over here.
With your squad sergeant.
Before we erect a small house on top of our soapbox. No. Until we actually plant ourselves firmly to living on top of the soapbox, let's perhaps.
Yeah, let us.
I figure.
Okay,
I'm
strapped.
Oh, no, you weren't, but you walked backwards into it. I watched you do that.
Well, that's sad.
Sci-fi as a broader thing, since we're playing something of the genre, because it's a big thing, and I would say I like sci-fi, but then again, I'm not sure that I have much
enough of an exposure to all.
This is really, and comes to sci. I mean,
this is fairly
games. I would say are the one area of sci-fi I actually am probably the most savvy, partially because of these and things like Deus Ex, and even to a degree Fallout is a sort of a branch of sci-fi. Not like the super futuristic type sci-fi, but well, I guess it is the super futuristic, but not like the tech and magic, almost alien technology type sci-fi.
Right.
But so that's a little more obvious in the gaming realm. But I thought, like, when I look at my sci-fi shelf and on my books, I go, it's pretty small, and I wouldn't have thought that because I would consider myself a sci-fi fan. So I thought, what you have any favorites of sci-fi? Perhaps that's a good starter question. Is what would you say is your favorite sci-fi? Let's say book, and then we'll do films or movies.
Book-wise, that's hard.
It's not for me.
Maybe
I may not have a lot, but the ones I have, I like a lot.
That's hard. There's one. I'm not gonna be able to remember the
Are the snipers still up there? Because they're the ones that are.
Particular book, but it basically was a book that I read as a junior higher that was about.
Oh, is it the Martian Chronicles?
Yeah, I mean it's like Mars Diaries or something of the like. I can't remember the exact title, but it's great.
Ooh.
I mean, it was like. It was like essentially they were trying to colonize Mars, and it was.
Oh, so I think that is the Martian Chronicles, is what it's called.
Maybe.
Is it because Ray Bradbury? Is that you remember the author at all?
I don't. It was back, honestly, when I didn't have the same type of appreciation for books that I have now,
because that's.
Honestly.
I mean, I don't know if it is that, but that is the plot of the Martian Chronicles. It's like the first people to colonize Mars.
Well, and like you learn. I mean, I just found it interesting because they made it believable enough that it's like, this may actually work. Especially with Elon Musk doing his thing.
It's pretty much about to be happening, which is sort of crazy.
It's wild.
For me, it's an easy answer. As much as I may not have much sci-fi, but the ones I have read, I've found to be great. And it's definitely the Ender's Game series.
You said that, and I haven't looked at those enough.
They're great. Well, because if I had to pick one from that series, that's tough. Although I would probably go Speaker for the Dead, the second one, because the first Ender's Game I read, I read in high school, and it was just after I really started getting into reading, because I was very much an anti-reading person as a middle schooler. Like I was very much like I didn't like reading, and that's partially I think just because the way reading is taught in schools.
Well,
it's like
something
they don't,
to be said.
They don't give you any of the good. It's like they make you read
stuff
that's not great, and then you end up. All it does is make you think, "Oh, wow, I guess I just don't like reading."
Suck, right? Well, and that bothers me because classic literature totally not really taught enough to me in school. Like for instance,
it depends on your definition of classic, because some people would call the stuff they teach classic. Not
It-
you're probably
they're trying
in
to-
terms of literary canon is probably what you're talking.
Yes,
Like-
I mean, like
There's guys
like
behind
British
me.
literature was my favorite class when I was in high school.
You're gonna have
but
to
it was
keep playing the game because I'm gonna keep dying here if you ain't helping me out
But
there.
it was because it actually had some substance, and I don't say that with any disrespect to American authors, because I think that there are some good ones as well. But I think so often they strain at the people that they want to make known, or that they.
Well, there's definitely a bit of that, especially now.
And it's like, what? Why? Why are we making this the focus when you could be focused on something that actually had some cultural significance? I mean, of the day.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So that's a whole week. That's a whole another can of worms. But so Ender's Game I read shortly. It was shortly after I started to realize, oh, books can be good. You just got to find good books. And so that I loved. And then a good while later, I read the sequel, Speaker for the Dead, on the recommendation of a friend. And I would say it's definitely my favorite of the series, just because it's great. And I mean, I can't probably even bring across why I think that, just because it's got a lot of emotional stuff, and if you, I mean, more so than Ender's Game, which would be surprising because Ender's Game was pretty messed up at times, and yet this one manages to be somehow even more tragic and sympathetic. And then I actually also really liked. I mean, I liked all of them. I know a lot of people say that Xenocide and Children of the Mind are kind of the weaker, and I can agree with that with Speaker of the Mind. I almost said Children of the Mind, because it starts to feel like it's having trouble bringing closure to all of the ideas that have been introduced. And some of the fault of that is in Xenocide. Like, I liked Xenocide, but looking back on them as collective, as sort of one book, because that's how they were meant to be originally,
Right.
I realized some of the stuff that's introduced in Xenocide doesn't get resolved that well in Children of the Mind, simply because it can't. But because they kind of push it off in Xenocide, you don't realize that it can't be resolved. You're like, oh, this is great. I still enjoyed them both. I mean, they're still high on my shelf. I think I still rated Children of the Mind a 4 on Goodreads, which to me is like...
I'm terrible at giving reviews. I've read a lot more than I really have reviewed. I'm honestly dreadful at it.
Because you could never review them ever again.
What?
If you read a book and then don't review it immediately, how are you ever going to review it later? When you
that's
have like
my
half
point.
a
I'm
memory
terrible
of it?
at it.
Well, that's why you got to just do it right then. I can't imagine finishing a book and not reviewing it, because I'd be like, I'll never know again.
Well, is it more for you? Like, that's.
Oh yeah, I don't
curiosity
rate them for other people. I rate
No,
them.
I mean my meaning.
Oh.
Do you like go back and say, what was that book? What did I think of that? Or
I
is it more like,
sometimes use them as comparisons for other books. Like, there's sometimes if I'm reading a book that I'm sort of conflicted about, and like, I don't know where to put this, I then go back and be like, what did I rate that? Well, I definitely like this more than that, so I have to put it above
as a
here.
Comparison, I see.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know. There's a bit of the completionist instinct that's like, I like to look at my Goodreads and be like, this is the stuff.
See, and
It's
I
a journey.
want to get there, but I just I'm terrible at it.
We're making actual progress in our travels here. Oh, we're out to the fort. So there you go. Oh, first cutscene. There we are. But yeah, the Ender's Game saga as it is my favorite, definitely.
That's. Yeah. I wonder on a literary level how much Star Trek before... Like, I know that obviously it's got a following when it comes to its own show.
Were they books before the show?
That's what I was
after?
wondering. I
know that there are books, but I'm not sure. I actually don't know. I haven't seen... I've never read any of the books, and I have seen the barest minimum of... I have watched only The Next Generation and literally like a handful of episodes when we had Netflix, before we lost Netflix. So I have no real skin in that game, so I have no clue. But I'm actually somewhat curious about the Halo books. I recently started looking into them because I used to think about them the way I thought about the Star Wars books, which was like, there's a few great ones and the rest are really not.
Yeah.
And then of course Disney came along and wiped them all away anyways. But like I've never read them, and since I've now had to abandon the games for basically feeling like I'm not interested in whatever stories they're going to tell because they've kind of ruined the stories they already have told. So I'm curious to see if the books might be a way to get my fix, because I do actually like the lore of these. But yeah, I don't have much else sci-fi. I've read The Martian, which is great. That's probably close as a second for a favorite. I've read not a whole lot, to be honest.
As far as sci-fi goes,
yeah, I have more books than I've read, and I don't actually have that many books. So it's like I should explore that more purposefully. But I've read one book by Arthur C. Clarke, who is a well-known sci-fi author. He wrote 2001: Space Odyssey for reference, or he co-wrote it with Kubrick, I believe. Who did?
I have to say, honorable mention, you mentioned that author, would be...
have you read anything of his?
No, would be... wow. What's the title of it? Now I'm only remembering the second book, which is The Restaurant at the End of the Universe.
Oh, Douglas Adams.
It's
Hitchhiker's Guide.
Hitchhiker's Guide. That, actually, it's not my favorite, but I would say it's definitely up there for me.
I have not read them. I finally got a hand on...
The movie was not quite as good.
Well, I've heard that.
But
finally got my hands recently on they're snipers, so I'd be wary because they killed me. I got my hand on the big omnibus, like all 6 collection recently, and so I'm gonna hopefully get around to that. But Arthur C. Clarke, very famous, wrote 2001 and other very famous sci-fi books. The book I had, it was touted as being the work he considered his best, and that doesn't bode well because I didn't love it. It was, if you're curious, it's Songs of Distant Earth, which he seems to claim he was like, oh, I think this is my favorite thing I've ever written. I'm just like, it's not that it's a bad book, it's just, it's really kind of, it's not what I want from a sci-fi book because it's very slow and very
See, I felt that
dull.
way about Red Rising a little bit. And
I haven't read that. I started it and then I didn't finish it because I don't like ebooks.
And that's no insult to anybody that does appreciate that book. I'm just saying see, the hard thing about Red Rising was it wasn't that it wasn't interesting. It was just very mundane. That's so. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the characters themselves, the plot development was decent, but it was it felt rather like uneventful. Do you know what I'm saying? And there wasn't a lot of.
I don't because I've not read it, but I read the prologue and the first couple chapters, and they seemed pretty interesting. But then again, the problem I have is I just really don't like ebooks, and that's the only way I have it because it was given to me as an ebook, and I just can't get there.
Oh, see, now that would actually be an interesting I think written is, it depends on the mood I'm in, I suppose, which is a very, emotive statement, but
well, for things like books, that's not an uncommon.
Because there are certain times I do just want, textbook for me, as far as an academic.
No, that's true. I have
much
many of my textbooks were PDFs, largely because of price.
Well, I like
the ability to search.
Yes, that's huge.
With textbooks, I'll admit that's a big deal for me. I still enjoy. I like actually. I have some of my textbooks are big physical hunk books, and I'm like, there's still something kind of. I don't know. It's a visceral feel of I like the way this feels.
Right, and so definitely there are books that are like that for me.
So yeah, that's perhaps an exception, but I don't like reading from the screen. It's just not my thing. So yeah, not a fan. Wasn't a fan of Songs of Distant Earth. Not that it's bad. I like the title. That's kind of what drew me to it first, but it doesn't feel like it
delivers on the promise.
Yeah, it's just like it because it sets up a fairly fantastical scenario and then is fairly mundane afterwards. It's like, I don't know that I have the time to go into really all of it, and I don't want to necessarily spoiler it either, because it's still probably worth reading, just because Arthur C. Clarke's got a reputation for it. But
sure,
it's not my favorite. I'd go Ender's Game, Martian second, and honestly, I'm not sure I can comment on any other sci-fi I've read. I'd have to look back at my shelf. So perhaps then movies, because that's probably the genre or the medium for science fiction that I am the least familiar with.
Oh, really? I would think you would be more.
Okay, maybe
with...
that's not true. I suppose it's.
I mean,
just,
if you consider like Star Wars. To
yeah,
be a part
I was
of that.
gonna. I wasn't at first because I was thinking more like really hardcore sci-fi.
Well, the very fact that you don't think that Star Wars is hardcore means you're a nerd enough that it's hardcore.
I suppose. I don't know. So I mean, Star Wars is up there. Not necessarily. It's not necessarily that it's my favorite sci-fi. It's just it's one of my favorites. I love the Star Wars movies. Were big for me as a kid, and so they've always had a sort of nostalgic place. Favorite sci-fi, when I think about it as like my sort of classic view of sci-fi, I'm not sure that I have watched a film that delivered on that fully. I have not seen Alien. I intend to. It's on my list.
Oh,
I've been setting up my film list to become more film cultured.
We do have to watch that.
Like recently, I watched Interstellar.
I haven't seen that yet.
It's not a bad movie. I liked it to a degree. The ending threw me, which is, as much as I love Christopher Nolan, that's not uncommon with a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
Inception's about the only one, and of course the Batman's. But Inception's about the only one that didn't throw me towards the end.
Even Inception, people could argue, was a little open-ended. I mean,
yes, but it wasn't.
Some people
open-ended.
argue that
Interstellar's
more than
problem is not that it's open-ended. It's that it pushes for a plot point that's really a stretch for me. And similar, and that's in fact the same thing I felt about The Prestige. We were going, I like that movie.
Oh, I love The Prestige.
I like that movie, but the ending, I kind of was like,
would that be considered sci-fi?
Well, it has to be, if only because of the ending. And that's why I wasn't a fan of it, because I liked it as a historical drama, and then it turns out it's a sci-fi, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't love this.
Didn't mind that portion of it. It just was.
I couldn't get there, and we're not gonna spoil what it is, but if you've seen it, you'll know. I couldn't get there. I'm not sure that I have a favorite sci-fi movie. I might have to just go with Star Wars, if only because it's the only one I can think of.
Well, I think that's the most obvious choice for really.
I mean, unless it's like you could call it. Yes.
I mean,
well, the trouble is like things like Terminator.
Yeah,
and,
that is
and
true.
Judge Dredd.
You've
even
got a good...
they're all sci-fi, but they're more action, and that might seem pedantic, but like I feel like there's a different. They're action movies in sci-fi settings, whereas like Interstellar is a sci-fi movie. It's about science fiction. It's not even that big an action movie. It's purely science fiction.
Yeah.
Whereas, Terminator is an action movie through a sci-fi lens. And it's a great movie, but I don't know that if I was in the mood for sci-fi, like really deep type sci-fi...
You wouldn't specifically classify
I don't know that I'd go for an action movie, because probably what I'd be in the mood for is like a more contemplative science thought experiment. And I know that there are lots of movies like that, especially like... from the 80s, like Silent Running is one I've heard of a lot. What's it? I can't think of the other one. Event Horizon. It's like they had a lot of non-action, sort of philosophical sci-fi almost, which I kind of like. I mean, that's an interesting idea. Well, because it invites that, I think. Sci-fi, when if you start giving people superhuman technology and giving them the abilities that come with that, inevitably what they do with that will reflect, human nature to a degree.
Yes. I mean, I think that's true of... I don't know how you would frame that. I mean, yes, I think it does represent... It's representative, for sure.
Well, and that's like people like Asimov and Kafka were those kinds of sci-fi book writers, and so I should rectify my gaps of science fiction by probably I'd start with. I mean, Asimov's probably one of the most famous science fiction writers in terms of I was thinking far too modern. A book I loved at science fiction is War of the Worlds, and pretty much anything by H.G. Wells, to be honest. I do quite like H.G. Wells as an author, and he's, of course, given the title of the father of science fiction for a good reason.
Well,
although
exactly.
He shares that title with Jules Verne, which, not unfair, but if I had to pick, I'd pick Wells between the two. I like Verne somewhat, but I just think I like Wells more. But
what's the actual? I mean, why is it more the writing style, or is it?
I think Verne has a tendency to get a little too into the hardcore science,
Yeah, but
And
see,
that-
wouldn't you? I mean, by definition.
well, but
of
I mean,
what
to
you
the
just
degree where it's like
stated, it was almost
he'll spend 10 pages talking about
the
a
particular
theoretical,
watch.
like a theoretical science concept that
Right.
he's talking about. Like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is there's a lot of that, where it's like, oh, here's how the submarine works, and here's how it produces oxygen, and here's
Yeah,
how the
that's very
diving suits work.
Tolkien-esque, though, which is like I
Yeah,
kinda
but it's
enjoy.
it's even more than Tolkien, in my opinion. It's like, because it's literally like a scientific, like there's, he talks about it. They go on deep sea diving to collect like massive pearls at one point, and it's like literally, it's not even, because Tolkien does it in cultural or like he'll give you really in depth stuff on history and culture of a specific group,
Right.
whereas this is literally like a schematic of how this thing works almost, and I'm like, this is really interrupting the pacing. I actually think, on a redemptive note, Journey to the Center of the Earth, I vastly preferred. Because I was a little bit down on Verne after reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. But Journey to the Center of the Earth I liked a lot more. But still, I'd just have to go with Wells. I think he's a little more... He plays with the concepts a little more fast and loose, which might seem like a negative thing, but it means the stories move a little more
Yes, freely. Yes.
freely and are not so hampered. So yes, that I forgot that, and so I would consider him among the favorite. Although he doesn't top Ender's Game. Well, we're getting close to the end. We might go a little bit, a couple 10 or some more minutes, because I figured we might actually have a chance to discuss current events. Well, aren't we being hip and savvy and with the times? Because since we using... Oh, that was me that did that. You ran towards them. I didn't realize you were going there. Since we touched on Star Wars, there was a news article I heard recently saying something about there's going to be another Star Wars series. Hooray. Read as much irony into that as you physically can. But they're
Without
saying...
seeing my face.
But they're saying... the headline said something about George Lucas is actually going to be part of the writing team.
Well,
Which,
but that doesn't inherently mean it's
yeah,
fixed.
I agree, and admittedly, it's like too little, too late for me.
Yes,
and
that's
that's I used to, as I said, I used to be big into Star Wars, and I've sort of, they've lost me a little bit, and that's a sad thing. I've sort of lost some of my enthusiasm for the series, and so this to me, I kind of go, okay.
You can't even really be excited about it because you don't know.
Yeah,
because
I'm like, it's just. Maybe it'll be good, and that will be great, and if I hear that it's great, I will probably watch it. But I'm not going to go, oh, George Lucas is making the Star Wars series, it's going to be great now. Because I just go, I don't know that it will.
Well, see,
and I don't know that
and
I
that's
care.
That's the way I felt when Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson even were coming back for
Has that been confirmed?
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's been up in
Ewan
the air.
McGregor's been confirmed.
Right, but I'm saying even with that, I go, that's cool, but an actor does not a great story make. You know?
Well, yeah, I got a point there. So it's I mean it's a minor topic, but it just occurred to me because I saw that and went, okay.
I thought
that was literally my reaction.
Modern events, I thought you were going more with the Daft Punk.
Well, yes, that was the other one, and we're stretching our science fiction bridging.
Well, that is true.
It's techno music. They robots. Daft Punk. Here we go. Apparently,
that sounded like a segue.
Yeah, there you go. Daft Punk apparently after almost 30 years breaking up finally.
Yeah, that's tragic.
Which I didn't look much into it beyond that. I just saw it was on Instagram of all things. I saw people talking about it, of course I was sad because I went through a Daft Punk phase like everyone else did in the early 2000s, or the late 2000s, I suppose, in my case. But, admittedly, they haven't done a lot lately. So I'm not sure that I'm that affected. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like it's not like my favorite band who's still around breaking up. Like, that would be far more traumatic. But it's still kind of sad. I like Daft Punk, and it's sad. I don't know what the reasoning is. I didn't look into it. I don't know if they're going to split up and do music independently,
right?
Or if they're just done, because I'm sure they probably don't need any more money.
Well,
so it's like they might just be retiring.
Right. I was about to say it's not. I mean, if you really logically, obviously they weren't going to be able to do it forever.
Well, that's true. I don't actually know how old they are because when I thought about it, I realized 30 years. I didn't realize that they've been around that long, but it's
For all
true.
you know, they could be 80-year-olds under their suits.
Well, because I mean, I think that
No,
they
I
were.
think people
I think
actually
they
know
were
who
fair.
they are.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can find images of them without their suits on if you looked.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think they were fairly young when they started, but that means they got to be at least like 50 now. So it's like I can understand that. They've probably got enough money, and they're probably old enough to be like, you know what, I think I'm done. But yeah, a bit of a sad thing. I like them. They were sort of the first experience I had with the Persona music scene. Like, and that might seem a bit strange, but it's like the bands that have very distinct personalities, and you know they were. I don't know that they were the pioneers of that, but they were the first exposure to it that I had, where it's like the whole pretending to be robots in the suits. I actually love the fact that they wore, when they won, I forget what award it was. I think it was an Emmy for some song they did recently. I think it was Get Lucky, which was I'm not going to talk about, but they actually showed up to accept the award wearing like stylized versions of their robot suits. Like they had white suits on with the specialized helmets, and I was like, that admittedly I thought was really funny that they did that. But so that kind of, you know, personality music, like Buckethead similar vibe.
Well, I think that adds to the mystique.
Yeah,
to be
it's
honest.
a bit of a
part
fun,
of the
yeah.
a part of the entertainment value. I mean,
it becomes part of the thing. You know, it takes on its own life at that point, because it's almost like it's the same reason why bands have mascots, but it's like if the band was the mascot.
Then when that goes wrong, you get the Blue Man Group.
Well, I hadn't even considered that. Well, just a cautionary tale then.
Cautionary tale.
But yeah, so
Don't expect that your personas are going to carry it.
yeah. Well, so what's your? Do you have a favorite? Because admittedly, it's been a while since I've really even listened to Daft Punk much. But
As far as
got a favorite?
as far as like dubsteppy or
Well, I don't.
I mean, I wouldn't even classify
they
them
weren't
as
really in the
inherently
dubstep. They were pretty. They stayed pretty true to the more broad techno house.
Right. House is a great
Yeah,
description.
trance maybe. I don't know actually. I'm not
Trap.
sure. I don't. See, I don't know nothing about.
Trap, I
know
would say,
nothing
is a
about
good-
genre classifications. That's a whole nother can of worms, which we probably don't have the time to get into, but
No, we do not.
because it goes beyond just techno. Every genre has its
Ragdoll physics.
every genre has its can of worms, but I don't know what my. It's been a long time. I would say
So if I had to stick within the techno genre,
Around the World's pretty great.
yeah.
Just because it's got the cool bass line and the cool bass solo. I learned that bass solo. It was one of the first things I learned on bass when I started learning, because I was like, I want to be cool. Because that was how I thought you'd be cool back when I was in middle
And then
school.
you learn bass players don't get the chicks.
Yeah. Well, there's a fun, it was. I mean, it was not technically a meme because it was years ago before memes were really a thing. But it was like it was a sticker joke, and it was like, oh, the lead, it was the members of the band, and it was the lead singer's got like 3 girlfriends. The guitarist probably has 2. Drummer might get 1, and then there's just the bassist who's always alone.
Just with his bass.
So yeah. But around the world, I'm trying to think. 'Cause
There's
if
another one that I showed you recently that I actually really liked.
Did you? I may not
And
listen to it.
it's not a super common one. I wish I could remember which one that was. I
don't recall you doing this, but it might have just been I didn't check it because sometimes it happens.
It's a really mellow one, by kind of an odd turn of their normal vibe. I'm gonna briefly die repeatedly. Just forgive the.
Well, well now that means I'm gonna die too because I got no support. You're ruining the flow. That was your fault. That blood is on your
This
hands.
is your fault. What was it?
I'd have to look at the Zune to see, because I know I've got lots of Daft Punk stuff. It's just been a long time since I've listened to it because I've known them for forever, so it becomes one of those bands that like you remember fondly but you don't listen to anymore because you're listening to new stuff.
Man, it's
Yeah, it's probably got to be Around the World just because it's it bops.
See, I didn't love that one as far as the
Oh, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger is pretty good.
that one I did like.
That's
I really
probably,
appreciated that one a lot.
Yeah, that one's just because it's a little more experimental. You're ruining the
really-
flow now, both of the game and the conversation.
I actually really appreciated the Tron soundtrack, by the way, though.
Yeah,
that was
although
actually,
I'm not. I mean, that's. I mean,
that
I
was
appreciate
more
the Tron
just-
movie. That's.
Yeah, I mean,
that's,
well,
that could be
and
another-
that's kind of a sci-fi-ish. I mean,
Yeah.
so it
it's
comes
true.
full circle.
There you go. There's a sci-fi movie I liked, although I wouldn't probably call it a favorite. I mean, I like it almost. It becomes almost a defense mechanism because it gets a lot of hate, and I'm like, it doesn't deserve the hate. Not that I think it's a great movie, like a perfect movie, but I still enjoy it. So I defend it more out of a sense of like, what it deserves than simply because I like it. But
Well, that's annoying. It's going to be one of those ones where I'm not going to be able to find... I do know this. I'm fairly confident it was released as a single and it was not on one of their albums.
well, they did a lot of that, so I don't know.
Yeah. So,
Well, it's around the world for me, and apparently you don't know.
yes,
That just
I
goes
know
to show
in my
you,
head,
we
but
may be
it's-
trying to be hip, but we never will be. Well, as we die repeatedly, unable to think of things to say, and Daft Punk songs, I will hurl myself into the river. Oh,
you couldn't even do that.
I can't even die on my own terms. Well, perhaps we'll just leave it at that.